All right, everyone, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Thursday, October 5th, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today here. So markets here are basically flat to positive, although it doesn't really tell the story just to say that. So again, minor gap down, and then we had a pretty good flush actually, down to the 421 handle essentially on the SPY. We rallied up and then pulled back to 422. And now we're getting a nice little short covering rally here into the final hour. It is about 3 p.m. We do have the all-important jobs number tomorrow. That's going to kind of be the be-all, end-all here right now. As far as which way the market wants to go, I don't really know here. It could go either way. Right now, markets are fractionally higher, but it's only like I think it's only like a 50% up day at this point. But it is a nice little squeeze, and it should be respected. Taking a look here at the 4 hour, you still have, a bearish inside bar. There's a couple of red flags here that I'm seeing with the rally. You look at ZB here. This is not rallying with the market here, right? So we put in a low earlier this morning, and we've just been sideways. Again, same thing with the 2-year ZT. It's coming off the lows a little bit, but it's not like a robust rally by any means, and we're not squeezing up with the futures or with the SPY, right? Just a little bit of a minor red flag. Another minor red flag would be if we don't. I would say you should probably close above yesterday's pivot to kind of cement this rally here. But again, the markets are still only flat. There's still an hour to go. But I don't really think it's going to be of much consequence. Again, that number is everything. So we could gap down, we could gap higher. I'm not sure which way it wants to go here. We could get a hot number, and then that might be the low. There's, we could gap down, and then it could be a gap, by the dip. It's certainly possible here if they defend that 200 moving average. So again, it's kind of just like a toss-up at this point. Is it priced in enough? I'm not sure. I think that the number that is expected is 150,000, which seems kind of low to me. But again, we'll see what we get here. But SPY's basically flat. Had a nice little rally off the lows, but again, still kind of like on the intraday time frames, unless we get above. And I'm just using the 4 hour here, 426.65 on a 4 hour close. You still have a 4 hour inside bar below the moving averages. So market's still in a weak technical position. But obviously, if you get any positive news or if things get too bearish, we can squeeze up. So that is kind of the setup here. If we look at the VIX, it is red on the day. I would have preferred a little bit more of a move up, closer to that 22 handle to kind of set in a low. But we'll see what we get tomorrow. It's going to be all about that number. Needless to say, do need to get above 427.37 to really get a squeeze going. This is in the short term. And if we do squeeze up, we'll put our trend lines back on. You have this trend line too, but then the 431 area, 432 rather, and then of course that 20 period moving average are going to be your short-term targets. If we do start to slip and break this 200, there is some levels that members have that I will share with them, obviously. But we'll be looking for some type of low at some point in here. There is still a lot of support if we do flush out. There's also the possibility we could get, you could make a case this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you could get a fifth. So there's a lot of things that can go on here. But again, spiders today, not much to say. Just a lot of whipsaw, a lot of directional bets getting roasted before the number tomorrow, and it's really going to come down to that. Obviously, the lows. Again, on the downside, the lows. You start to take out 421.16. We're going to take this low out, and we will go lower. So best I can do right here is just give you those short-term levels and go from there. But in any case, let's look at the triple Qs. Down 53 cents. Although you do have kind of leaders here. Apple getting a nice bid, finally getting above that kind of previous bear flag little channel. So that's repairing a little bit here. You need to close above 175.20, which we're right at right now, to get above that red bar. By the way, I just did a video this morning about inside bars and bear traps. You get a close above that, it could be a positive sign for Apple. It's only a daily level, and it's not a huge inside bar, but it is kind of your breakdown. It's where you gap down to, so that could be a positive there for Apple. NVIDIA also kind of leading the market higher. And, we talked about Tesla recently, that as well. So again, it's not like a huge breadth day here. XLE is red, XLU still struggling, consumer staples, XLP getting smacked, down 1.6. So it's not like a huge breadth day, even though we did have a nice squeeze. Again, like I said, it can go either way here. But triple Qs down 46 cents, short-term gap fill, 120 moving average. If we do start to slip these lows here, and you do have kind of like a little wedge forming, potentially. If you take this out, especially on a weekly close, you get below this pivot. It could be a little interesting because there's not a lot of support here, really, on the weekly, and unless you count this pivot all the way down to 320. So just be aware of that. But again, Q is just hanging out in this range. I do think we get a decision tomorrow on which way it goes. Russell 2000 getting a bid here, up 35 cents. Again, remember, that's the most oversold. It's going to get the bigger bounces here. They had tried to break down earlier, little failed bear flag intraday, and now rallying up short term, gap fill 174. That still has a head and shoulder that can play out still to 165. So again, kind of going with what I was saying a minute ago, could we put in a wave 4 here and then make a wave 5? Could the Russell go up here and then tag this trend line, and then you get your final low down at 165? Certainly possible. Can't rule that out. DIA up 52 cents, still well inside of this red bar here, and trying to hold on to that 331.45 handle by the end of the day here. Still a lot of good weekly support right here for the DIA. And if you get a little bit lower, there's even more right in this area. So not a ton of downside here for the diamond. Again, rallying up could take you up to 338. Could it be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? It's certainly possible. So that would line up there in that scenario. SMH up 34 cents. Again, we talked about NVIDIA. As long as it's above this pivot, it's safe. If we do get back above the trend line, we'll look around 149, 150 for resistance. IGV, that was a little interesting today. That was all over the map, down 31 cents right now. Big sell, and then another big comeback like the rest of the market. Not the greatest pattern. I don't like how you're below the moving averages. I don't like this kind of, it's almost kind of like a bear flag look there on the daily. But if we start to take out this level, cannot close below this pivot on a weekly close. Otherwise, there's a lot more downside in IGV, but it's holding up for now. And we'll leave it at that. Dow Transport's coming off the lows like everything else. Basically flat to negative. Still below that 200 moving average, so in a weaker technical position. Again, a little oversold here, trying to hang out of that 200, the weekly close. Will tell us a lot more, but you definitely don't want to be below this by tomorrow's close. Otherwise, I think, 14,000 could definitely be in play. All right, getting over to interest rates, and we'll start out with the 2-year as always. So 2-year at 5%. So that looks like that is a failed inside bar. It's most likely going to be on the 2-year. So that looks like it's topped out here. And again, go check that video out. I did this morning. Really good stuff in there. But so your power bar low is 5.050, and we're below that right now. So that would be a failure. That could indicate the 2-year coming in. We talked about the yield curves. Take a look here. It's really taken off. So we're starting to see that yield curve tighten up. The market may like that in the near term. It might not like it in the longer term, because usually that means that recession is coming. But it is mostly tightening from the long end, which again generally means that inflation expectations are higher. The Fed wants this, right? We had some discussion in our Discord last night, and some people were asking me, "Is the Fed going to intervene right now?" I said, "No. The Fed wants. Look at the long bond. The Fed's been saying for 2 years they want the long end up, and the market has been fighting. The market's been trying to fight the Fed. No, we want, the yield curve's inverted, and you're going to intervene. This is what the Fed's wanted. So I don't think the Fed's scared right now. They might jawbone it. I think Barkin came out today and jawboned a little bit, but I don't think they're actually going to do anything. And we'll look at gold for a minute here, but I think if they were going to do something, this would already be at all-time highs, so we're very close to it. Just a little bit of tidbits, a couple of tidbits there for you. But yeah, yields here kind of holding up. I actually see the 5-year coming back in. 10-year is flat to lower. 30-year is flat to positive. We'll see what this does tomorrow. Obviously, the NFP number will tell us a lot more. Yields are overbought. That does not mean that they have to pull back, though. So just be aware of that. But anyways, let's move on here to XHB. So XHB, flat to lower actually. So again, not a strong chart. We talked about that bear flag last week. It played out, and now you have, I would call this an inside bar. Got good volume there too. So as long as you stay inside of this, this could set up for another move down. So this is definitely a weaker chart in the market here, down 0.5%. And again, seems like the market is finally, right? Remember yields kept going up, and it was like, man, these home builders just won't go down. Well, now it's like the market, now that the long end of the yield curve is going up, it's like the market finally realizes, okay, this is a reality. And we're seeing home builders start to reflect that. So it makes sense that those would be on the weaker side, but still trading above the 200 moving average. A close above 75.32 would be a sign of strength in the near term. VNQ getting a little bit of a bounce. I want to see where this closes the week. You got to close back above this pivot here to have any shot of a rebound. It could be a good double bottom. But again, I don't like that monthly pattern, and I'm not sure how much upside is in it, but we'll see. And we'll watch for that weekly close. XLF getting a bid. Remember, we talked about the 3-bar sell, 1, 2, 3 right in a row. So should get a bounce here. Still below Tuesday's high. It looks like it's going to close below that. I think market coming in just a little bit here. On a closing base, you get above that, then we can go a little bit higher. Never quite got down to 32. I would have preferred that. But it is bouncing. We'll leave it there. I will say KRE is getting a little bit of a bid. I told you guys got to hold 40. It's getting a little bit of a bounce, so we'll give it the benefit of the doubt for now. If you lose 40, then it's in trouble. KBE, we'll call this the new line in the sand, 34.99. Got to stay above that. And then KBWB, just a weak chart here. Does have some support here. That's where we came down and pivoted, but definitely not a stronger equity. Broker dealer is getting a pop here. We'll look at that 100 moving average around 485. And then 490 in the near term. Okay, let's get over to commodities, everybody's favorite. So crude down 2%, kind of slicing through this. So this is what can happen, and I kind of talked about this yesterday. I was really close this morning to picking up some crude sub 83, and I'm glad I didn't. But I talked about this yesterday. When you come down on volume like that, a little uptick in volume with velocity down 5-6% in a day, usually these levels can kind of pierce a little bit. It'd be one thing if we had went up here and we did something like that, then it's like, okay, now it's really oversold. It's probably not going to break. But I'm not saying it won't bounce here. It certainly could. It's still a very good level, but we're not really seeing much intraday, right? I mean, you just kind of like bear flagged here. Look at the hourly, kind of like a bear flag, right? Still could bounce tomorrow. We could wake up and it could be at 84, 85. But, plus I just don't like the risk reward here because your next stop is down at 77. And on the upside, you might only get back to 88. So I just don't love the risk reward there. But it is trying to hold this level. The weekly close will tell us a lot more. Right now, it looks like, guess what? Watch the video, guys. It's up there. That would be a failed inside bar on the weekly, which would be a big negative for crude and tell me that we could go potentially much lower. Maybe not ridiculously lower, but I definitely think we could see lower prices. Anyway, XLE, got to stay above 85 on a weekly close here. That's not an inside bar. That's just a support level. If we do get through that, there's a lot of support down here, kind of near that 80 handle. But we'll talk about that if and when we get there. But right now, trying to hold that nice little necktie, 200 and 100 moving average. That may actually get a bounce here tomorrow. So XLE holding up. XOP finally got to 135 and got a little bounce. It still is red on the day, but we'll see if that can get a bid tomorrow. And then OIH also coming in. I think that wants that 20-week moving average, and there it is, 318.23. Not that far away. If you get through that, you got some support at 300, whole round number, and 50-week moving average. Let's quickly look at uranium. CCJ getting a bid. Got to get back above 37.50 on a weekly close. And actually, let's call it 36.91. Okay, so that's your weekly inside bar. Again, so if that gets closed below, that's a big negative for CCJ, and it's going to be done for a while. URNM, again, outside weak. But it's getting a bounce here, and we'll see what it does. That might retrace 50% of this move here. So right in that 46, 47 handle. But again, tomorrow's close will tell us more. Okay, star of the day, nat gas up 7%. So again, this has been kind of the squeeze level we've been talking about for months now, and it is above that. So I do think you can squeeze up here with natty. Probably needs to, I would say maybe a pullback tomorrow would be not out of the question. You know, you're at 320, 325. It's up 20 cents today. So, but that's kind of what happens with nat gas, and that's what happens when you get these, you break these short levels. This is where the shorts are camped out. They put their stake right there. It took 6 months to hit it, and when this time it only took 6 weeks to hit it, what's going to happen? It's going to squeeze up. That ascending triangle is starting to play out. It's probably not going to happen, but you just got to be careful. Watch the weekly close tomorrow. It's got to be above 303, so 302.7. If somehow it gets whacked tomorrow, that's fine as long as it doesn't close back below this line. So it's really all about that weekly close for me, but it does look like it's on breakout. I don't think that it's going to, I mean, look at the volume there. I don't think that it's going to come back too far, but you know, you could test it and then bounce back off, but big pop there for natty. All right, dollar index. So sitting at 106.36. This is coming in. Maybe this is telling us something about the jobs number. Again, I talked about yields. They're not really doing anything noteworthy, but the dollar is coming in down 40 cents. Again, there's a lot of weekly resistance there, right in that area, and the dollar is starting to back off. So we'll see what that looks like tomorrow. But dollar coming in, and you know, obviously that's good for the market. So we'll see what we get tomorrow. Gold here, we touched on briefly, still on the weaker side, down 70 cents. You know, I don't like the weekly because we closed below that green bar low, that inside bar low. But you are above the 200 week moving average. And again, on the monthly, you're above this inside bar on the monthly time frame. So as long as that's the case, I think it's okay. Again, on the case of Fed intervention, you know, the VIX needs to be at 30 at least. And I think gold will tell us if the Fed's going to intervene. I think they might jawbone, but I don't think they're actually going to make any policy changes, at least not anytime soon. But gold coming in still has support here in the short term. Might get down to 1810. Silver also trying to hang on to 21. Very oversold here. Would like to see that get going to the other in the opposite direction. But first stop is going to be about 22.50. Let's just draw this in. That's your breakdown area, 20 moving average. So we'll see what that does. But again, still stalling out at that area. Platinum getting close. I think it's got one more flush in it. And then I think it's time to buy. Palladium continuing. Come on, keep going. Let's go. I want that sub 1100. Just to review this one more time so you guys can see. I'd really like to get it, you know, somewhere in this area. You know, if you can get down here, I mean, that's probably the money shot right there. 200 month moving average, long-term breakout, way oversold. So we'll see if we can get it down there. Copper stalling out, down 2 cents into a little double bottom. Let's see, it might go back check to 370, but I think it's ultimately headed to 340, as you guys know. And I've been saying that for pretty much the whole year. Bitcoin here, what kind of pattern is this? Everybody should know it by now, especially if you checked the video out this morning. So there's your bullish inside bar after an inverse head and shoulder. As long as you're inside of that on a closing basis, I'll give Bitcoin the upside bias on the daily. On the weekly, I don't like Bitcoin as much because you're inside of what? That red candle. But guess what? On the monthly, you're inside of this candle, right? So monthly is dominant, weekly more dominant than the daily. So you got 2 out of 3 time frames saying bullish. The problem I have right now is the market is very illiquid, both equities and crypto. But right now, pattern's fine. And I'll give it the upside bias to 30,000 as long as you're above this and above that yellow trend line. Okay, so market's set to close here in about 40 minutes. And we're pulling back. So minor red flag if you don't close above this pivot. And it's also a minor red flag that bonds are not rallying. So as far as tomorrow's what's going to happen, I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you. I can tell you though, If we do start to flush out, we probably do break this 200 moving average, and you probably see some panic, which is kind of what you need in order to get a real bottom. Like, we only have, market's now negative. We don't even have an up day right now. So you can't even have a 90% up day if you're red, obviously, or at least that would be really rare. But in any case, on the upside, got to get above 427.37 on a close. Next level is 430, basically 432, 20 moving average and this area. But right now, going into tomorrow, last look, 4 hour, still bearish inside bar below the moving averages. So just keep that in mind. And I'll let you know what everything looks like with the weekly close tomorrow in the Friday video. Anyways, guys, gonna wrap up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Talk to you all tomorrow.